Ghost Code Magazine welcomes in Chris Deering of The Sound That Ends Creation. How are you doing, Chris?
Doing pretty good. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here, man. Super stoked to talk to you. A lot of stuff to unpack. You have a brand new record coming out, Boomers, Zoomers, and Desperate Coomers, or maybe no and in there. Um, whole bunch of stuff. But first and foremost, it has been a brutally difficult time in the world for professional musicians to do anything they love. So I hope you're well, your family, your collaborators, everybody's good.
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good. Honestly, I haven't gone on tour yet or anything. It's just been like recording it like by myself. So honestly, not a whole lot has changed for me.
Alrighty then. I have talked to a couple of people who were introverts naturally, and they were like, "This thing has been amazing. I feel terrible for anybody that dies,
Yes,
but like
yes.
personally, I have never been more productive or happy." And I was like, "Well, that's awesome."
Exactly.
I went 511 days without a show, and I was like dying inside a little bit every day. But like to each their own.
Yeah, no, it's definitely sucked for a lot of people. A lot of venues closing down and stuff. Like I'm trying to organize a tour now because I am trying to play out and stuff, and it's hard to get places because most places have closed down, and a lot of people have like started booking like as soon as they could. So everything's like either booked up or like shut down. It's crazy.
Right. I do know that the strategy of the bigger bands was to continue keeping their holds on venues. I don't know if fans want to diatribe right now about how shows and tours are booked, but a band will book an entire routing of a tour, put a hold on the room for a certain date. If it gets canceled, they rebook that date in the future to when they think it can happen. And that also creates a logjam of other people who want to play out. It's the same thing with vinyl right now. Obviously,
I was just about to say
there's
it's
also
exactly
like
vinyl,
a crisis in the vinyl industry because of certain things, certain factors non-related to COVID, but also because of COVID and everybody pushing their albums out in this wave of albums. I was just looking at the October album schedule, and like with Mastodon and Every Time I Die just announcing albums, it's like 100 something rock and metal albums coming out in late October. Secret, don't put yours out yet if you haven't. You're coming out in November 5th.
November. Yeah.
So smart. You're missing that that wave. But yeah, I'm surprised that even records are still getting announced. A lot of bands are not doing this like 4-month lead anymore. They're doing like very sleek release schedule and marketing, which I'm very into music marketing. So
I noticed that too. Like a lot of bands are just doing like 2 months of a lead time. It's crazy. And like bigger ones too. Like usually these people take like 4 to 5 months at least.
Maiden did less than 3 months from the inkling that there was a thing to having a record out. I was like 8 weeks, 9 weeks time.
That's crazy.
And
that's
Maiden,
crazy.
like Maiden. So I just finished like a podcast series on like the 80s Maiden record releases and how insane they used to do like a record every 8 months and tour in between and somehow write and record, and they were all brilliant up to a certain point. It didn't start to suck for a long time. It's unbelievable. But yeah, man, let's talk about you, man. So The Sound That Ends Creation, very ominous sounding name for a fun project. How did you get started in music to begin with? Because I think you got a very interesting story from what I gather.
Well, I don't know how interesting it is, but I started so I grew up on oldies, and I always wanted to like perform. Like I would try to do talent shows, and I would tell my mom, "Hey, I want to go do some Elvis ballads up at the talent show," and she would tell me, "No, I can't do that." And thank God she did, because it would have been awful. I would have been completely destroyed by the kids, right? But yeah, there's always been like this urge to like do music, and I started to try to get bands together around ninth grade, which would be like, God, what year would that be? Like 2005? No, 2004, 2005, something like that for me. And they would always fall apart because like somebody somebody wouldn't be like actually interested in it, or like things happen. And so one day I just decided, screw it, I'm gonna make my own music. So I started making I started having one-man band projects starting in 2016 or 2006, I'm sorry. And they were like death metal and such. Is really into death metal back then. Ended up joining an actual band around 2010, and we did like a little tour. It was pretty cool. I ended up leaving, but they're still around. They're called Giant of the Mountain. And then around 2015, I decided to start The Sound That Ends Creation. Just looking for something interesting that hasn't really been done before, because I was getting kind of tired of like black and death metal, which is what I was making at the time. I just figured, everybody sounds like that. Like, let's do something different.
Right on, right on. And without, I mean, I could guess. I'm a critic, right? Critique music. That's what I do. Partially, that's my vibe and my gig. So, like, I listen to this and I'm like, oh, I hear this and I hear that and I hear this. I can guess some of the info. Like, I hear Frank Zappa and I hear Sun Ra and I hear jazz and I hear like Dillinger Escape Plan. And I hear like shred guitar, crazy like the 80s cacophony, like a million figure taps a second stuff, a little bit just from the vibe. But like what was the original? Like, you mentioned Elvis, which is fine. What were like some of your other influences? Because obviously you got a lot of different stuff going on there.
I just basically want to take the kitchen sink and throw it all in, you know what I mean? But now so it started, I got into mathcore way after like everything died. There's like the whole scene basically died off in 2008. And I found See You Next Tuesday and Psyopus and Early Daughters, and that was really the stuff that like made me want to make the mathcore. So it was pretty straightforward for a while there. Then my fourth album, I decided to mess around and put some piano on it, and then I found this one band called Lefty Fish, who plays jazz essentially, but in a mathcore setting, if that makes sense. So it's like metal jazz, I guess. And I was like, let's do that and push it further. Like, let's get some breakdowns and stuff in there, So that it's about where I am now. So yeah.
Right on, right on. No, I totally get it. And I dig it. There are bands like that I dig. I think you get, the jazz influence creeps in different types of genres. A couple of black metal bands are doing it. Obviously, a lot of progressive music does jazz. They always have. But yeah, it's interesting to note that, like, yeah, this thing's an amalgam, and you don't seem terribly concerned with like sticking to one thing, having two songs that sound anything comparable. Like, it's just like your brain exploded on the sound on the tracks, like, whoa.
kind of. Actually, for each song on this album, each one was what do you call it? And I guess it started out by taking a jazz record and speeding it up 2 times, so that I would take that and turn it into like a grindcore kind of setting and try to like make it sound like what it would sound like if a grindcore band played it. So that's where the inspiration for each song came from. Yeah, that's the thing I decided to do this time around, to try to shake things up a little bit,
Challenge
make
yourself
it more
a little.
jazzy.
More jazzy. It's almost like if Pig Destroyer made a jazz record, because there is a lot of like very clever humor in the songs, as well as the titles, as well as the beats. Just got a very Pig Destroyer vibe, and I was like, oh yeah, I'm here for this. I like this.
Yeah, I'm trying to take dark topics and make them like kind of diffuse the tension with some comedy, but also introduce some I guess leftist ideology into it.
That's the next thing I was gonna segue for me. I don't even have to do the work anymore.
Oh, you're welcome.
I'm all about the leftist ideologies, and I don't care who knows it. I like to say that I'm left of Jesus and Bernie, and okay. Castro. But that's me, and I'm not for everybody. I'm also not in an echo chamber, so I respect other people and their wrong opinions at times about things like politics and the economy and elections. And I live in a state where we're having a recall election. The governor's not a great guy. He's actually a putz, but like he's also the state. Yeah, California. And he's actually the only governor who had like any sense about him, about the pandemic, about how to handle it. He may have made some very public mistakes, but like if he gets recalled and we get this jabroni,
oh my
crazy neocon psycho who's gonna like roll back everything.
Yeah, Mr. Minimum wage should be $0.
Yeah. I'm all set, buddy. So I love, there's like a very smart thread on top of the fact that the music is very clever. There's a really smart thread running through everything. Song titles, lyrics. It seems like your artwork is just call out all the assholes and the abusers and the,
right.
And you don't give a shit, which I love. Totally love it. I'm here for it.
Thank you.
Yeah, man. I'm also smart enough to know, like, listen, nobody's one ideology wins over the other by itself in a box, but also because that's not how politics works at all. But like, also enough, man, enough. I think if anything, the pandemic showed us all what really matters and how little we really matter based on the response time of just not any particular party, but the whole governing world. just was like, well, people will do the bare minimum, and if a bunch of them die, it's okay. It's okay. We'll lose some people. We're gonna lose some.
That's
They didn't give a
capitalism for you.
shit.
Yeah,
They
that's
didn't-
capitalism for you.
That is capitalism at its core. They do not give any fucks about the working class, and yeah, it's mind blowing. I actually just randomly, I just, not that this is also not based on fact, but like I watched The Irishman on Netflix, and I was like, word, Jimmy Hoffa. People don't talk about labor unions and organizing anymore and anything like that. It's like lost. It's like, oh, we're just here's what you get and be happy, and it's like, no, man, like people died and laid down their lives to protest this shit. Like, no.
Yeah. If you get lucky, maybe you can retire and live in a cabin on a lake somewhere.
That whole idea is, that whole idea of the 401k and credit and things like that is all manufactured to make us live a consumerist lifestyle that doesn't mean anything, a value. But also, it was just there was this whole thing recently. There was this like big pushback politically, like, oh, people don't want to work anymore. No, they want to work. They want to work fulfilling jobs that don't pay them shit, that have decent benefits, that don't actually cost you anything, but you're such a cheap bastard who doesn't value human life, you don't care.
No,
not that like people don't want to work anymore. No, they don't want to work.
I hated hearing that. Yeah, I hate hearing that all the time.
It's gross.
And it's like, maybe raise your wages,
It's
so weird.
Pay people a living wage. It's just a thought. Maybe there would be less poverty. Again, I live in California, which is like any major city and state is going to have the tremendous dichotomy of rich and poor and class struggle and all these things. And I don't care. I don't care if people don't like it about me. I get called libtard, snowflake. I got called Ghost Cuck magazine recently. That was really awesome in my YouTube comments. I was like, whatever you say, bro, that's all you got. That's what you've got. That's your best. You could do your worst, and that's the best you've got. I got nothing to worry about.
It's funny because like Republicans are like the ultimate cuck, right? Like they want this stuff that makes their life harder. It's so weird. I've
never seen a cuckier motherfucker in my life than Mitch McConnell. Oh my God, that dude does not fuck. He does not come. And his wife is definitely wearing the pants, the dick, and the balls between that marriage. And he's we gotta run these fuckers all out of DC. Like, we need a whole radical change. But I like that this is like front and center in your style, like very topically, and it's good that you don't have any. There's no bounds on you. There's no nets on you. You're not worried. Like, it's already difficult, challenging music that not everybody's going to get. Let me throw this out there too. Yeah, I like that you're not worried. Like some other people would be like, I'm going to make some relatable topics on top of this challenging music. Nope. Up your ass, everybody.
Well, honestly, I feel like most musicians are actually pretty leftist. So I don't think that I'm like, alienating too many people. And the ones I do alienate, it's just like, fuck you, right? Like,
I didn't want you anyway.
Kind of, yeah.
So yeah, it's very cool. I dig what's going on here on a lot of fronts. And even the album artwork is fun. There's a lot of fun. Like I said, I think there's a fun humor that runs through everything. I don't know if you're one of those people like me. I make jokes and people are like, what's wrong with you? And I'm like, nothing. It's funny. You don't get it? No, I don't get it at all. Not at all. But I wonder if you get that.
Yeah, sometimes. But yeah, I just wanted to like keep people entertained, like a lot of bands will just like have an album that's like about, I don't know, depression or some other kind of like mental issue, or there's all these what do you call them, more generic kinds of like lyrics, and I want to be different. Like I want to stick out, you know what I mean? I want people to remember me, and this is a good way to do it. Album made you laugh,
There it is. Oh, or think. That would be the goal,
think and laugh.
Maybe both. You also work with some pretty stellar guests on here. Yeah. That's a pretty amazing collection of artists that you work with. So one, how did you connect with them? Are they friends? How did you connect with these people to collab? And then just kind of as a second question is like, did you write with them in mind, or did you just kind of write the track and be like, hey, would you like to do this?
So who we've got on here is Cameron McBride. He's from Meth Witch. Dude's amazing. His project is just, I don't know how he's like so like popular with people, making like this crazy, disgusting, dark music, but he's like one of the best, one of the more popular mathcore acts, which is crazy. So I actually have a podcast called The Cassidins Creation, where I interview mathcore bands and stuff, and I had him on, so that's how I connected with him. And the other one that that's been out is Kate Davies. She's from Pupil Slicer. She's on this latest one, kicking ass, taking names. But yeah, also had Pupil Slicer on the podcast. The next one, I haven't actually like announced it publicly yet. So I'm not gonna say who, but it's someone I've also had on my podcast. Yeah, that it's been a good way to like connect with like the community, you know, the podcast. Yeah, it's just, I've gotten so much crazy support from the mathcore community, bringing that, you know, continuing that project. Yeah, it's been incredible for that. But yeah, I didn't write with them in mind. Brought them in after the fact. Just like, oh, there's some cool people we could have, and there we go.
Right. Without naming that artist, even though I have a feeling it's going to probably come out before this interview, I hate Ice, all capitals. I don't even put it in my water.
Yeah.
Maybe my favorite song title of 2021. Like, yeah, fuck putting people in cages and fuck Ice and fuck the whole notion of that shit. This whole country built on like people coming from somewhere else for a better life. And then you're going to be like, nah, in 2020, no.
Yeah.
Or 2019 or 2010 or whenever the fuck, forever.
Wealthiest country in the world, by the way. Wealthiest country.
I mean, absurd amount of military might, absurd corporations, absurd amount of million, everything.
And most of these people coming here are coming here for things that we did to their country. You know what I mean? Like we could go we'll both be put on some kind of watch list after that conversation. Like George Carlin, rest in peace, my spiritual father and hero, was like, oh, you know, white men shouldn't play the blues. You live in Texas, right? White men shouldn't play the blues. White men give the blues to other people. That's what their job is in the universe. And I was like, okay, like, that's a white old guy who was born in Texas telling you that shit, right? You know, and I'm not, listen, I love the blues, and I, you know, just like, you know, not everything has to be like a serious level 10 ball ache. I'm angry all the time. I'm not angry all the time, but if you live in this world and you're just you know, not plugged in at all, or you're dispassionate, or you just don't care, it's hard enough to live my little life. I get it. A lot of people are tuned out. Politics, there's ruined politics. You know, the internet has ruined politics and actual discourse for everyone. Like, I love the internet. I work in marketing and media, but like, it's also destroyed any real conversations. I have many friends who don't agree, like think I'm insane. Like, if Keith ran the world, we'd be ruined in a day, probably the way you want it, not the way I want it. I'm not talking about a utopia. There's no such thing. But like, yeah, I just think if you devalue human life so much that you don't care anymore, I think like, why are we even trying? Yeah.
Why are we trying? Like, what's the point of all this? So
exactly,
you judge a society on how you treat its most helpless members. And I get that, you know, everybody's a cynic and everybody's skeptical, and I am too, but just like, it's just brutal. But yeah, a lot of this is fun. A lot of these titles are fun. It's going to be a no for me, dog. I probably say that once a week. So a lot of dad jokes for a young guy. I gotta tell you, I'm closer to dad jokes. I'm more dad age than you. You got a lot of dad humor in the pocket there. I like it.
Those are the best kind of jokes, man. I actually, for a while there, I used to post a dad joke on Facebook every night before I went to bed.
Nice. So let's say when you roll this back to where you started this album, like when you go to compose, what do you do first? Do you sketch? Do you pick up an instrument? What's the first thing you do to go start a song?
I just start playing and recording, man. Like, I don't really sketch out too many ideas. Like I said, my inspiration was just playing jazz records at twice the speed and trying to make that sound with my guitar. And that's literally how the song started. I think I did like 15 to 16 songs, I think, and then cut it down to well, it's really 10, and then there's an intro track. But yeah, so that was it, man. Pretty straightforward. I've been doing it for so long. I've just got this system pegged down, you know.
Nice. What was like the first thing you, like, beside Elvis or whatever that notion was, like, what was the first thing that ever made you want to play music or pick up an instrument and do music? Was it a band? Was it a song? Was it the radio? What was it?
Yeah, I guess it had to be the radio. I grew up listening to oldies. There was an oldies station that my mom would put on whenever we're driving like daycare and stuff like that, you know, like when I was a little kid. And so all that stuff has a real nostalgic place in my heart. That's why I do the singing style I do on this, like trying to copy the I guess they're called crooners from back in the day, you know, that kind of like talky singing style. And yeah, I mean, that has to be the the first time I wanted to like perform. Like I said, I wanted to do freaking Elvis songs at the school talent show, right?
Right on. I'm more of a late Elvis guy, or I should say mid to late Elvis guy, not a late Elvis guy because Vegas. I like Graceland, and I like that, some Elvis, but also I
So
got
you
that
like all the ballads and stuff.
a little bit of the balladry and a little bit of
Okay.
the churchy influence stuff that he did. I thought was wonderful. Like, the early stuff they're fun songs. He didn't write any of them. He stole them all from other people.
Yeah.
Kind of fuck that. But like Elvis, cool. Like I know, he didn't, he wasn't smart enough to be like, I'm gonna steal from black people and blues and do my own thing. He totally wasn't that guy. He's not smart enough to be that malicious. Not at all. He's pretty dumb. He's a hayseed dumbass.
The oldies that I'm really into, I love the Beatles. You can see this awesome poster back
We're gonna
here,
talk
Yellow
about those
Submarine.
posters in a second.
Yeah, and then the other one was Beach Boys. We got it right over here too.
Right
so yeah, those are probably my favorite ones. Elvis is just like my mom's favorite, so I heard that all the time.
Of course,
you know what I mean?
Course, no.
But yeah, like I was listening to oldies nonstop before I started making this album. Actually, like just trying to figure out how to incorporate that into this. And hopefully you'll be hearing more of that in like the next album.
I feel like this is the music Brian Wilson hears in his head before he makes a Beach Boys song. Like this is what he hears. And that's not an very insult. Well have
been back in the day.
Yeah, that's not an insult. He also was like guzzling LSD, so like probably. Yeah, but Brian's a genius. Like, yeah, I love the Beach Boys. Like, yeah, there's a lot of value in oldies. And it's certainly an era where music was really loved and cared about, and they didn't do anything halfway. Even the one-hit wonders of like the last 50 or 60 years were made with more love and care and artistry than now. I often talk about like the 80s. You take like 80s pop songs and just deconstruct them and listen to them. They're wonderful. It's like, oh, I can't believe that this much love went into this song. And then the shit today seems like it's farted out, like quickly.
Yeah. Well, there's some people that do say that they just like come up with beats like within minutes. The Chainsmokers, I'm pretty sure they make music in like 5 minutes or something. Like from what I hear, I don't remember where I heard that from. It was a little anecdote that I heard.
Yeah, there was a TikTok band recently that was like, "Oh yeah, we just pulled this shit out and literally did this 5 minutes ago. Check out our new single." I was like, "All right, cool. Maybe it's good. I don't know. Not for me though, but."
Yeah. Talking about people putting more effort into music back in the day, though, the song "You've Lost That Love and Feeling," like that dude put all of the guy that actually wrote the song or whatever, put all his life savings into that thing, even though people told him not to, and it took like months to record and such. Like, it's crazy how much effort these people went into.
Right.
And you think about like now you can easily do that with like a click of like a mouse or whatever, But back then they had to record each of these separately, and like some of the tracks from like the Beatles and Beach Boys, it's like, how the hell did you layer this stuff properly? You know what I mean? Like, it's wild.
Yeah, Yellow Submarine is still fun. It's funny. I think there's been like a wave of recent animated videos lately that are trying to pay homage to Yellow Submarine, and I like the joke from Family Guy that's like, "Oh, hey guys, we let Ringo write a song. We're gonna put that right on the fridge." But Yellow Submarine is a fun song. It's a great movie. I love Nowhere Man.
It's an awesome movie.
It's an awesome, like sober or high, it's an awesome movie. Was their fun drug period, like right before they started to get really great. Sorry, Beatles.
Oh, come on. No, the old stuff. This stuff's the best stuff right here.
Oh, some of the best stuff. Yeah, like that. Yellow Submarine, Help, Rubber Soul Revolver. You could just live there.
That's the era.
Magical Mystery Tour. Like you could just live there. And then I love the late stuff, and the early stuff's fun, but it's not like, to me, it's not, I know it's catchy and it was humongous, but it's not to move me like the other stuff does. But yeah, man, Yellow Submarine's fun. And then I see Clockwork Orange, which also makes complete sense. Kubrick.
Yeah, it's such a good movie. I think I've seen it like 25 times, something like that. Like, oh, it's so good. I love the whole aesthetic of it. Just like messed up like 70s, I guess is what you could call it. Like dystopian features from the 70s. Oh, it's so good. So good.
It's a recurring theme. I wonder why. Like, what about an apocalyptic society where shit goes off the rails? I wonder where you got that idea from, everybody, ever. But yeah, man, it's awesome. This record is a lot of fun. And so you're gonna start playing out. I guess that's the goal. Are you gonna try to do like I know it's like the COVID times. Are you trying to do like a record release show?
Yeah. So we announced my first show. It's October 29th. in a place in Denton. With I don't know if you know these bands or not, but in our scene they're kind of big. The God Awful Truth, Pac-Man the movie, and Kurama. These are bands that are like coming up in the scene, you know. And so yeah, it's actually like an insane lineup for people that are into this kind of music, you know.
Yeah,
like and it being my first show, I've been getting all kinds of crazy reaction, like people talking about they're gonna drive out like hours or fly out and stuff. It's insane. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. And then we're gonna try to do a tour later on this year. I don't really want to say what band with, but yeah, it's not gonna be like super long, like a week and a half, something like that, just to like get a feel for it. You know what I mean? But
there you go. You got to start somewhere, man. You got to start somewhere. Chris, man, it's been a pleasure chatting with you. I'm super pumped for this record. I think a lot of people are going to be. I'm going to drop all the links in the description and everything for this. But if there's any last words you'd like to share, not your last words ever, I hope, but like any last words to our audience, jam on it. It's all you.
Well, I appreciate you for having me on, man. So you can pre-order the album now at the Sound That Ends Creation at bandcamp.com. I've also got a podcast called The Cast That Ends Creation, and we record live every Sunday and Wednesday on Twitch. That's twitch.tv/The Cast That Ends Creation. You can find it on YouTube and all the other streaming sites. But yeah, record's out November 5th. I hope you guys dig it.
All right, Chris Deering, thanks so much for hanging out with Ghost Code, man. I really appreciate you. Best of luck with everything. We're going to keep track of you, and all the best, man.
All the best, man. Thank you. Thank you for having me, for real.
All right.